Hey, what's up, everybody? Rob Marzullo here from Ram Studio Comics. Welcome back. So, trying to get back into the live stream of things, get back into the stream and start doing a few more of these work alongs. I just got tied up with some jobs, and like I've kind of said before, I kind of have to just do these here and there because I don't always know what I'm going to have schedule wise. I'd like to really commit to a schedule. I know that's the best thing to do for everybody, but unfortunately, I just can't always do that. So what I want to do is get in here and refine this a bit further. Probably do one more level of refinement to the character just to clean up the lines a bit more. So I'll show you a little bit of the edits as I do that. I kind of want to bring this arm out a bit further and just kind of push the perspective a little bit more. And yeah, we'll basically talk about some of the cleanup work and then maybe lay in some more details to the buildings here as well. So I'll wait for some people to hopefully chime on in. We'll see. And see if we can get this going. I know it's kind of probably an awkward time of day for some people because right now it's 12 o'clock my time. So I know a lot of people are probably at work or eating lunch or both or neither. Who knows? So yeah, I just basically finished up on a large project that was taking all my time or majority of my time for the past few months. So I'm pretty excited to be able to get back to doing more projects like this and a little bit more freelance illustration or comic work. It's the only bad thing about larger projects. They're good to get every now and then, but man, they can really consume what you're doing and overtake anything else in your schedule and your life and that kind of stuff. Anybody watching, feel free to chime in. I haven't done this in a minute. I want to make sure everything's good for the setup, audio check kind of thing. Let me know if you have any questions. So my game plan here is to refine this a little bit more, and then whether or not enough people want to see this go to inks and colors and things like that, we'll see how far we take it. But I think she can be cleaned up one more time. This is really could go to ink too. It depends on how confident you are from your drawing to your inking. I'm a little less confident when going from sketch lines to ink, so I'd probably refine it one more time. But there are times when it's kind of neat to just jump on in and do that, and you get a pretty neat, nice effect sometimes. So, all right. So if we want to add more to the buildings, let's see where those are. That's the clouds here. Background. There's the buildings. Got the perspective guides back on. Let's kind of draw in some more details here. Let's see. Are the guides not on? Let me see. There we go. That should have fixed the problem. Yep. Okay. Unfortunately, you guys can't see the icon I had to toggle on. Normally, inside of Mongo Studio here, there's an icon to the top center right up here, kind of a bar or whatever with your tools. And because of the way the live stream works, for whatever reason, it actually sets that window on the other screen. So I couldn't show you that. I just had to toggle that on to make the ruler active. So if you're wondering why it kind of had to find that real quick to make the ruler work. I'm wondering if the chat's working. Is anybody Can anybody chime in on the chat there? Because I'm not seeing any comments or messages, and it's showing that messages are coming in, but I don't see them on the chat window. Let me start this off. So if somebody can just comment, make sure that you can hear and that this is actually working properly, would be great. Okay, there we go. We got somebody. And a fellow Rob. How you doing, Rob? Good name. Good name. Is the audio sound about right? Sound okay? Okay, good deal. We got a couple people there. All right, I was just getting a little worried. These live streams can be tricky to make sure everything's kind of functioning, and there's that little bit of delay and that kind of thing. So, and let me know if you guys got any questions. That's really the purpose of these live streams, is to answer any questions you guys might have as we're as I'm working on a piece. What's up, JS? Good to have you back. Okay, streaming audio is good. Yeah, so yep, Q&A is fine. So it's like if you guys have any questions, it's essentially what I want to make these live streams do, like a lot of people do, is just an opportunity for people to really ask questions in real time. And then I'll hopefully combine it with me showcasing work and obviously I'll promote my products and things like that occasionally or whatever, just because it kind of helps me keep doing what I do. But it's mainly to answer back any questions that you guys have. So a lot of times when people are writing me these messages on YouTube, I really want to respond back, but some of them are just so, the explanations are so long-winded and so detailed. It makes a lot more sense for me to either do a video response or a live stream to, really meet up with everybody and answer some of those tougher questions. I'll be honest, I'm not the best literate person where I struggle more with writing and explaining things in that general sense, where I'm just better at kind of explaining it verbally. So, what art school did you go to is Bat Freak's question. Good name there, Bat Freak. I'll be honest, I didn't go to art school in the general sense. So what I mean by that is I went to community college for just a little bit. I was paying out of pocket, and I was doing it. I was getting through it, but like any schooling, they start you off with the extremely basic stuff because they didn't have any foundational things that I could say that I was already educated in, other than I had already drawn comics. I was already published at 18, so I had already did a few things on my own and got lucky with in doing so, just by hard work and studying books. Like I've always been a really really big on self-studying. Like I read lots of books. I've always, I consume lots of information on the internet, and obviously share it through here as well. And I learn in that process as well. But as far as school, I didn't finish college, and I didn't even finish high school. I went back and got my GED, but I kind of dropped out to start working because I needed to hurry up and get to making money and making a living and that kind of thing. But I did go back to college, Flint Institute of Arts, and I paid for a little bit to be part of that. But I was put off by the idea that they kept putting me on the very basic, rudimentary starting points, which, looking back, was kind of a little bit pompous of me to think that way. I didn't want to take my prereqs and things, and I didn't want to take basic art, things they wanted to put me in. Art history was even kind of, I thought, looking back, I should have been into that. I should have accepted all that as good information, but I was a little bit, I guess, big-headed in a sense and egotistical, and I just thought, no, I'm just going to do it on my own like I've been doing. I've already been published. I've already gotten some pretty good job offers and things like that, all with self-studies. So, but now as somebody that teaches people through online teaching and courses, I feel bad about those decisions I made back then, and I wouldn't recommend that. I'm just giving you my honest information as far as what I did and what did seem to work out for me. You know, and could it have worked out better had I gotten a good art college degree and schooling? Probably so. I don't know that it's necessary entirely. I think that of all industries, one of the ones that you can kind of make it on your own is art, just because it's about what you can. At the end of the day, it's about what you can showcase, what you can do. Unless you're in a profession of art where you need to be able to explain it better, you need to be able to understand art history and other things, other components that go to it, then obviously you need more schooling for that. But at the end of the day, if you went to a fancy school and you opened up your portfolio and it sucked, then that fancy school is not going to get you the job. So that's kind of my short answer to that. I don't even know if that's where you were going with it, but I just kind of rambled on, I guess. Um, is it graphic design and animation? No, I did graphic design on my own, again, through, I got in with a company and did graphic design as one of my first ways to make a living, because comics weren't paying the bills for me right away. And so I did graphic design, and I was able to get into the door with that just because I had already been pretty strong into Photoshop and you know, technology or digital art, I guess, or whatever. So I was able to showcase my work pretty quickly in that regard and get a job in digital graphic design. Animation came later when I started studying Lightwave 3D, and I showed some of my work to a local ad agency, and I got a job doing commercials, kind of a nighttime gig, where I started doing 3D animation after my graphic design job. So I was a bit of a workaholic, and I just was really going for everything I could in my mid 20s, and was able to do some animation for television, just for local spots. But I was even fortunate enough to win a couple Addy Awards or whatever, or help to win the Addy Awards, I should say. So I did do some logo fly-ins, a little bit of character design, nothing too extravagant, nothing like you'd see on some Disney movie or anything like that. But I was still able to get some stuff done, and that was all from self-studying. I just read a bunch of books, I implemented it, I saw stuff, a lot of stuff online, and I just started to make it happen and work late nights and produce some animations. So again, no real schooling involved. In fact, the schooling I went to, I don't even know if they had animation classes. They were a little bit more into the traditional and basic stuff or whatever. They probably did have more advanced, but I just didn't get to that level to know about it. Let's see what else. I just started digital drawing. This is from Aditya. I can't say that. Hey Rob, I just started digital drawing. I'm good at designing characters, but I can't even start drawing backgrounds. Please help. Please help. This sounds funny. I'll help. Just look at this. I mean, you see this is pretty blocky. I mean, even what I did here, it's really basic. My backgrounds aren't the greatest, but this is what I do. You can see it back here. I start with a really rudimentary block cube, just like this, and then I initiate. I think of some kind of trim work. I can't talk today. And then I draw in another shape, and obviously the perspective guides are making this a lot easier. Let me explain the top, I guess. So that everything kind of works like this when it comes to buildings. Really anything, but buildings are a great way to get started and get a feeling for what you need to see. So if you were doing the trim work of this building on the top, you want to perceive the depth of the edge like this. And keep in mind, none of this has to be perfect, especially starting out, and it never will be perfect anyways, but the main thing is that you just start doing it. So then you want to picture the edging of it. So it's going to look a little bit deeper here, and then perspectively, this is going to do it for you, but you're going to get a line that comes down here. Let me zoom up a bit further to explain this. So a line that comes down here, and a line that comes back here. And just real quick, you're able to put in depth right there. And it's not the best. And then if you want to get a little more detailed, size the brush down, you do the little angles. I'm holding shift click, and I can get these little angles in there real quick. I can start thinking about little breaks in the brick maybe, or whatever. But it all boils down to this little edging technique thing, at least for buildings. And if you start doing that, then you start thinking more about, okay, everything's not recessed. Some things are come outward. So you do a little outward structure here and there. Bring that all the way down to this line. Bring it out here. And then this line will connect over to here prospectively. So all of this is just a matter of starting to think more dimensionally about what you're doing. And the best way to really get an idea for this stuff, besides looking at other comic artists that are already doing it, because you can learn a lot from that as well, is I do draw-throughs of actual photos of buildings. And what that teaches me is the way that perspective converges to the vanishing point that you see here. It also teaches me that my perspective on buildings is very boring and very weak and very animated or whatever. You know, it's very stylized because it suits me getting it done rather quickly. But when you do draw-throughs of real life, you realize that realistically things are entirely different than what you're perceiving, and that you're compromising because you're trying to make stylistic choices. So you just have to put all that together. And again, it doesn't have to be perfect. It's mainly that you just jump in and start doing it. Perfection will come later, but really it'll never come at all. There's no such thing as perfection in art. You're just going to have to get to a point where you're happy, your fans are happy, and they love your style choices, things like that. So I wouldn't worry too much about doing it right. Just start doing it. Let's see. Yeah, JS kind of agrees on the art history thing. I was the same way, art history right after lunch in a darkened room watching slides, trying not to fall asleep in those conditions. Yeah, and looking back, I know it was extremely important, and it is important, and I should have taken it more seriously. And I think a big part of it for me, too, was because I was paying out of pocket for it, and I wasn't the most financially stable person. I don't know that I even am today, but I definitely wasn't back then. I was still a kid, really, and I was paying out of pocket, so I had a hard time paying for classes that I just didn't want to take and that I just didn't feel applied to where I was going with my art. But then there's a certain amount of where it's better to just rely on people that know what they know, and I shouldn't have taken that for granted. The teachers and the instructors are there for a reason, and I was letting a little bit of my emotion probably get in the way and things like that. So, like I said, in hindsight, looking back, I should have just stomached, toughened up and just did it. But I think a little bit of it was the whole, paying for it and really not having the expendable money to necessarily do that at the time. But choices are choices, and you can't you can't regret anything. But that's just kind of my experience with it. What's up? Let me see here. Hey, Rob. What's up, Nova? Good to see you back. Bat Freaks channel. Perspective drawing for the backgrounds, right? I don't know what you mean there. It sounds like more of a statement. Was there a previous question I missed? Oh, and Nova's recommended a book, Perspective Made Easy. Yeah, for sure. I mean, there's lots of great books out there. And just so you guys know, I just got to plug it just because I just did it. I just completed a full course on perspective drawing and painting in Manga Studio. So the same program. There's a link to the Udemy course, and then there's a link to the Gumroad page, both in the description of this video. And, if you guys are really wanting to beef up your skills, I go through some of this. I don't mean to overly plug that, but I just want, since we're already on the topic of perspective, and I did just complete that, give it a look. If it's something that applies to you, cool. If not, no biggie. But it's more where I carry you through an entire painting as well. It's you learn about the perspective tools and things like that, but I also take everybody through a full-on illustration from start to finish, where I paint a futuristic cityscape. So enough of that. I won't bother you anymore with that. I just wanted to shout that out real quick. And obviously I'll explain any questions right here as we're here doing it. All right, so let me read through the rest of it. Let's see. One more question. Is it okay to copy artwork for learning and character design? So Bat Freak asked that. because I'm not so good with anatomy. Um, yeah, I mean, definitely. There's nothing wrong. People got to remember that we're all imitating something with art, right? We're all imitating life. We're all imitating each other. It's all, especially with comics, it's stylized representation of art. Now, the only time I think it's ever wrong is if you totally create an illustration, you pass it off on your own, and you basically identically copied somebody else's work, and you try to say, "Hey, look at my amazing drawing of Batman," or whatever it is. Then yes, that's wrong. That's plagiarism, or whatever. I don't know the technical term. I think it's plagiarism, but that's wrong because you didn't make any style choices. You didn't change it. You didn't put your own spin on it, and you claimed it as your own, knowing that you copied somebody else's work. Aside from that, nothing is wrong. Nothing. I just don't believe that. I mean, you learn by tracing, by studying, by reinventing something that you see, or putting your own spin on it. Nothing is wrong, people. There's no right and wrong, and things like that. In my opinion, and uh, I'm not the only person to ask, obviously, but that's just my view on it. That yes, you learn by copying other people's work. One of the things that I like to do when I'm really trying to get better and figure some things out, I like to start inking, and I don't ink a lot based on the idea that I want to really per se be an inker for comics. I wouldn't mind it. I mean, I'd do anything to draw comics and create comics for those iconic heroes that we all know and love. But I don't really do it for that reason. I actually ink because I'm trying to study, because I'm trying to learn about what a more professional, seasoned, intense, great artist, whatever. Some artist that's better than me at what they're doing that I'm looking at and relating to, and I'll ink their work just to study. And you learn so much in that process. And that's, what's the negative term that people like to um, quantify inking with when it makes no sense, and we laugh about it, but people say, "Oh, you're tracing, you're a tracer," like the old Kevin Smith movies. People like to make fun of that, and it's like, really, it's not nowhere near tracing. It's adding more depth and style to the work, and it's an amazing aspect of the work. And but I think more than anything, for me as an artist, I love doing it just because I learned so much about that artist's style choices. So I say ink, everybody's work, trace through their work, and really study the decisions they make. I think that you learn probably quicker doing that than a lot of things. The other thing is just draw from life constantly. If you're talking about struggling with figure drawing and things like that, you got to draw from life to beat that. All right, let's see here. I got to go back up. I missed some of these. Yeah, so and you're staying with anatomy. So one more thing on that, and I'll pass on. I'm moving on. The next thing is draw characters, draw figure drawing to learn your anatomy. Draw anatomy reference sheets, like where they strip down everything. You just see the muscles where they start, where they end. But also draw from life to see how they actually look with skin and fat and things like that over them. And then draw from comics to see the style choices that comic artists make, and compare that to one another, and do all the above. So that's my opinion, anyways. All right. Hey, what's up, DS Piano? Good to see you. Hello, Noah. Oh, and DS says, "Hey, I bought a Wacom because you inspired me." Well, glad to hear that. They're amazing devices, and I recommend them highly. So I hope you're enjoying it. Appreciate that, DS. Forgive me if I'm saying that wrong. DS. Nice. I was reading your name, Breakfast Channel. All right. Let's see what else. Yeah. So Robert R says, "Hey Rob, are you working with Clayton from How to Draw Comics to bring content there?" Yeah. So basically, me and Clayton have worked back and forth with one another over the years. Promoting each other's work, critiquing each other. I don't know about critiquing. We always just say each other draws really well, so there's really no critiques. Um, but yeah, Clayton's a great guy. He actually just released a new proportions lesson and course. I'm going to be doing a review on it real soon here. But make sure you guys go and check that out. So check out howtodrawcomics.net and see his stuff. So if you struggle with proportions and things like that, and maybe I should put a link in the description box below for that as well. But does some really great content, and he really hit it home with the whole proportions lesson, because he really delves into the details of it. So like I said, I'll do a review of that real soon. But yeah, we've been working together on a few things, and we're kind of like-minded in the sense that we're both trying to make content for other artists that want to get better at comics. And I think he's been doing it longer. It almost started for me more as a necessity, because I did the channel and people started saying, "Hey, would you show us how to draw this? Would you draw that?" So it almost came from you guys as far as me doing it, which I don't know if he's got a similar story in that regard, but that's how it came to pass with what I do with the channel. It was like me at first, I think, just more or less sharing my work, and then as people started to comment and say, try this, do that, it just kind of naturally, organically evolved into what we're doing here. So yeah, and you can see I'm trying some different window shapes, and sometimes they're really weird looking and they don't look great. And then other times when I can't get the shapes right, that's when I start looking at reference. So I don't think that on this one I looked at any reference, and it probably shows in the work, but that's really how you kind of, again, hone your skills back to a sense of reality, is just, do as much from the imagination as possible, but then go back and pull from reference, look at reality, and go, okay, I see what I'm missing here. Like, one of the things I always forget to add enough of, and you see it in a lot of buildings, is a lot of buildings have just lots of little things on top of them. Lots of little boxes, whether they be air conditioning units and smoke exhausts and things. And so they got all these different little shapes. And it's funny how when you look at pictures, you realize, like, man, there's actually a lot of stuff up there. And but I always seem to forget that. That's just one of my little things that I kind of seem to miss when I'm trying to draw. They got the taller buildings that have like those big light bars, or I guess antennas with the light on top of it or something. So getting in all those little tiny details really helps the city shape as well. All right, back to the comments here. Let's see what we got. Yeah, it's great. I'm getting used to it though. It feels like I'm. Oh yeah, yes. It's gonna take a while to get used to that tablet, especially if you're using like the Intuos 4 or something like that, or that type of tablet. It just takes time, but it's really worth it. And after you get a few years in, you'll look back and go, man, how did I ever do without this thing? They're really great tools. Let's see. Robert, do you know how I can activate and deactivate my perspective ruler in Mongo Studio 5 without having to delete it and remaking it every time? Yeah, there's lots of ways, actually. So one of the ways, which I can't show you right now, but just so you know, I'm going to show you 3 ways. One way is that there's a bar up here normally, but because when I live stream, it actually puts the bar over on the other main screen. I don't know why. I can't seem to switch that, whatever. And I have to draw on this tablet. This is my Cintiq you guys are seeing the screen too. So anyways, that's normally up there, and it's the middle icon. If you hover over it, it will actually say snap to special ruler. It's the middle one of these 3 little blue icons. The other way is you go right down to here, you right click. Now keep in mind, if you right click over here, you're getting the layer options. If you right click over this little blue, that's the ruler. If you just right click and you just click show ruler, you can draw off the ruler. Likewise, if it's on and you just take off the visibility, you could take off the ruler. The other way that you can toggle off just each area of the ruler is you grab this icon here, you click on the ruler, and see these little diamonds here? You can actually turn each one of these off. Well, this one, just so you know, it's a 1-point perspective, so if I click this one, it takes off this whole series of lines, because that's actually the same line going all the way around in perspective. So hopefully that makes sense to you, but those are all the ways that you can turn things on and off. When you turn these off, they're green, and when you turn them on, active, they're purple. So, and just remember not to draw on that ruler. I mean, you can if you want. I like to always draw off the ruler onto another layer like you see me doing here. So hopefully that answered that question. Let's see. Joe Kubert said, never be afraid of tracing a comic for learning purposes. Yeah, I really think that somewhere along the line, somebody made that out to be worse than it was, and people got this negative stereotypical view on tracing, and it's really not the case. I think it's really important to trace. There's a video by, it's Kevin Smith doing the commentary with, God, who is that? Adam Hughes? No. Or is it? Anyways, look up Kevin Smith and a comic artist. Oh, goodness. I feel bad. I can't remember right now. He's one of the greats. I think it's Adam Hughes. Anyways, it's one of the big name guys, and I'm drawing a blank here because I feel like I'm on the spot with it. But he talks about tracing, and he goes into it, and he starts swearing and having fun with it. And he's like calling people idiots. You just got to see it. You know, it was just great because he talks about tracing, and he's like, he goes, you need to do it. He goes, that crap that's stuck in your head that you can't seem to fix, it's because you won't trace. I can't remember how he goes into it, but he delves into it pretty hardcore, and he's really comical about it. So yeah, I definitely recommend watching that. Just look up Kevin Smith doing an interview with a comic artist, and maybe type in the keyword tracing it. Maybe that'll come up, but it's hilarious, and it really hits home on a lot of the stuff that people kind of fear when they're trying to learn this stuff. And he recommends it wholeheartedly. And this is and this is a guy that's a bigwig in the comic industry. So if he's saying that, then just like Joe Kubert, you know, if they're saying that, then yeah, it's fine. Do you prefer Manga Studio over Photoshop? Yep. Yeah, I mean, for comics, I do. For design, I would say Photoshop. For digital painting, it's a tough mix, but I do a little bit more in Manga Studio now. I still use them both, though. I still can't get rid of Photoshop. There's a few tools inside of Photoshop that I just really wish were in Manga Studio. For instance, the Liquify. There's one similar in here, kind of. I guess the Warp is kind of similar. But you can't beat the way that Liquify works in Photoshop. I wish they would hurry up and adopt that into Manga Studio because it's amazing. Like you could do a lot of neat effects with Liquify alone in Photoshop. So yeah, I use them both. But yeah, as far as comic creation goes, I would predominantly say just Manga Studio. Like I do all my Blackstone comic in this. I do draw some of my stuff in Sketchbook Pro at times because the pencils, the drawing aspect of it works a little bit better still. Likewise, I think I draw a little bit better inside of Procreate. But all in all, if you're just going to use one program, this one takes it. This one is by far the most bang for the buck, and financially, it's the best because you know, you can get this program at times for like, I've seen people buy it for like 30, 60 bucks, which is insanely cheap for what it can do. So, all right, so I'm going to hit Command E and merge those all together. So you can see real quick on forward-facing buildings, I can kind of cheat there a little bit. You can also do that with perspective, but you got to distort them into place. Yeah, Nova's got a point, and I would say each program's good for various things. They all have their strength. They play to their strengths and weaknesses a bit. And I think that's how they sell copies. Is they say, "Oh, we're the inking program," and "Oh, we're the digital painting program," you know. But Manga Studio or Clip Studio Paint, whatever you want to call it these days, it has the most versatility. It's got the most of these options. Like one of the things I really like. I think Photoshop and Manga Studio are the only two that do this that I know of so far. When you're painting, let's get to one of these paint brushes. You can control the blending modes in both the brush, well, here they call them combine modes, just so you know, and also by the layer. So when you're painting, that's really important. You can do a lot of effects really quickly just because of that. And a lot of softwares don't have that. But the one that this has got that we're looking at right now that a lot of them don't have, and definitely not as versatile, are the perspective guides. You can move these layers around. You can create multiple perspective guides. You can't do that in a lot of the other programs. Sketchbook Pro, you can create one, but you have to move it around constantly, and it's definitely not as versatile. And also in that course I was telling you about, also get into all these special rulers, and these are amazing. These things, there's lots of versatility just in those. So you just have to delve in there and really see frame creation tools. I mean, there's just lots of stuff in here. Get back to here. Keep drawing on these buildings. And let me know if you guys want to see me work on the character a little bit more, or what what you'd like to see or what you'd like to know. Yeah, Robert R says the Pro version is on sale right now for $25. That's amazing. That actually makes me mad. I paid like a couple $100 for my copy, but whatever. It's good to get more people on board. I'm glad they make it available at a lower cost price point for everybody, because like I remember when I was telling people about it at 200, and they're like, oh, that's a lot of money. And for some people it is, and it's even for me it is. But at the same time, I look at what you can produce with it, and the value of the tool, and it's well worth it. It's just like when I had to buy my laptop. I dropped a pretty big chunk of money on my MacBook Pro, and it was worth every penny. This thing has been stable, solid, bulletproof. I mean, I've ran PCs my whole life, so price point wise, there's no comparison. I could have bought 2 PCs for it, but I have functionality. I have reliability and speed, and those things all. As a digital artist, somebody creating art all the time, you have to have those things. So you end up justifying more with price later on as you get into this stuff. Right at the start, you won't. In the beginning, you're just going to think, no, I ain't got that kind of money, so I'm going to buy the cheap one. And that's okay. But later on, as you're making more and more money with your work, you can start justifying saving time by spending more money, because, the most valuable thing you got on this planet is really time. That you don't get any more of that. So you've got to really make good use of it. So later on, you'll start seeing what I mean. You'll justify spending more to save yourself time. It just makes sense and good business. Yeah, Photoshop really does need rulers, Nova says. And then Jared says, or Gerald, do you use watercolor or oil paint tools? I made some watercolor brushes in my paint set, and I use these a lot if that's what you're talking about. So I use like the smooth painter a lot, chalk brush watercolor, some different ones, but mainly the smooth painter is one of my favorites. But yeah, I use a lot of those for the paint work. I do a lot of soft brush effects. Even use the pencil tool to paint with sometimes. There's a lot of little spots where you can work that in as well. Yeah, and back to what Nova said about the rulers in Photoshop, it really kind of boggles my mind that they haven't adopted that and used them. And I see all these great artists that are like, oh, you don't need them. You just draw out these perspective guides, and you paint perspectively, and you keep editing the work. And there's a lot to be said for that as well. But to me, if you're doing comics, you kind of do want it, because if you're doing these scenes like this, I mean, don't get me wrong, there is a lot of cheats you can do, and as you get better at it, you can actually draw a lot of these scenes without perspective guides and make them look good. An artist that comes to mind that I could always seem to notice that in their work was McFarlane. Todd McFarlane's work, amazing stuff. But you could tell some of the backgrounds he would cheat them, which I don't know. I don't know if cheat's the right word, but he would just draw it and it would come out looking amazing. But you could tell some of the stuff just wasn't in perspective. And sometimes I think that when it's all in correct perspective, like this scene is, it does look more boring. So you do have to learn when to cut back on that and draw on some things freehand as well. Mix it up a bit, or you could draw it all perspectively like I'm doing here. But then when you go to ink it, you could maybe ink it freehand, or whatever. So you just kind of soften up the hard edge effect that you're getting throughout. And, as well as mix up more vanishing points. I got to quit just putting everything to a single vanishing point, because buildings aren't always perfectly aligned. There's going to be some with tilts and angles built differently and twisting around streets and things like that. So you do have to mix it up more than what I've got here. But yeah, some people just learn to fake perspective even. You know, they get really good at making those changes. But it does kind of make me wonder, like, why is Photoshop waiting? They've got all these tools. They make updates all the time. Why haven't they put perspective guides in there? You know, I just kind of think that's almost silly, but I'm just going to add another structure right here. Let's see. I don't know if you've already been asked this already, but how long do you think it usually takes you to create perspective backgrounds? Well, this one is taking me longer than it should. You know, 'cause if you notice, I keep stopping to talk and that. But generally, I would say a scene like this, I could probably get through if I really start flying on it and just focusing on it, listen to some music or whatever. I could probably do this in a couple hours, just the drawing part. You know, and it doesn't need to be as detailed. You know, like a lot of times this would be more of like, to me, more of a cover shot. Okay, so I might go into a little bit more detail, but you a lot of times got to remember where's your focal point. And when for instance, when I get back to these buildings, I'm gonna do a lot of like cheats. I might up the brush size, and if I can get this stupid perspective line to go, and I might just simply go in here and do like, I don't know, like this, and draw some lines like this. Just you know, kind of a quick filler kind of thing. And then really, the other thing that I really should have done even before I got this far, create another layer, take the perspective guide off. You could do, you know, sketch it in or whatever, and figure out where the shadows are going to be like this. And a lot of times that will save you an abundant amount of time, especially with buildings, really with anything, because you start realizing that you don't need to detail as much if all this is going to be in shadow. So it's good to work in this stage of the drawing process rather quickly in the buildings, so that you can figure out, oh, wait a second, I'm unnecessarily detailing all these sides of the building. Like, we could make the argument, the shadow, the highlight looks like it's coming this way on her so far, but it doesn't mean that the shadow couldn't still project on these sides of the building. It would probably make more sense that they would be on this side of the building, like this. But I think we can make the argument that it could still be shaded like this. In fact, we could shade from this side, and we could actually have it break into lines as it hits the next build and repeat that kind of process. But again, if you figure out where your shadows are going to be like that, it can save you a lot of time with all those details. So you can really blow through some of these cities pretty quickly. So you take some shadow like this. And you know, one of the neat things about working digitally is you could really just fill this all in and then come back with a white pen or a transparent pen and, you know, take some of the details back out the other way. So you can see like all that, instead of me sitting there and just sketching in details when I probably don't have to, I could probably fill these in first and then just worry about the details on the other side of the buildings. Yeah, not to mention the shapes of shadows really push the forms around. So you want to get those in there. Like for instance with her up here, you know, she'll stand out okay without any large shadows. But as soon as I add this nice heavy shadow like right here, you know, it's going to push her away from that cape. It's going to add some depth to that idea. So you want to get these pretty big shapes in there at least occasionally. You know, you don't have to cover your drawing with it, but like here where the cape flows in front of itself, nice little drop shadow right there will help. And you can really start pushing these forms around. Even a little bit of shadow right here off her body. Probably a drop shadow right here from this big fold. You could take this down and carry this shape over into a drop shadow there. Just whatever, you know. But again, it's to really push those shapes around. Okay, let's see what else we got here. If you want to draw a city or something, I guess we'll take lots of time to prepare the perspective rulers. No, not in this program anyways. I mean, maybe traditionally, but in this program, it's really easy to set your perspective rulers, as well as if you're going to try to change something, you can drag this onto a new layer icon. You can make a copy of it so that you maybe don't edit it, your original in any bad kind of negative way. And then you could take this and you could grab it and you just move these around and move your guides wherever they need to line up. So say I had something up in the air and it was flying downward or something, I wanted to work in perspectively on that, I could just move that up, move these around, get them into place, and start sketching, a ship or something or whatever. So it's really quick when you're talking about adjusting perspective in this program. Maybe traditionally it would take a little bit longer to move all that stuff around. Rob Matthews says, when you decide to ink or paint this illustration, are you going to live stream it? I might. I just basically I need to get through it. I should have already been inking this by now, but I kind of don't want to skip anything and try to get as much information in here as I can. But yeah, I think I might. I might actually. I think I'm going to get rid of that for a minute. Finish detailing this. But yeah, if you guys think it's a good one you'd like to see, then I could definitely do that. I'm not really the quickest inker, but I could do it. Colors are a little bit quicker. I could at least time lapse part of it and narrate over top. But yeah, we might just do that. We might just do it all real time, because I really wanted this to be a process where I show everybody, all the decisions I make throughout. But yeah, it did take a little bit longer than I thought, as some of these illustrations tend to do. And that's where I really need to strengthen my own ability and skip steps, because you don't have to make all this stuff entirely correct. Like, especially like the building here. I'm trying to show you guys lots of variations for the design of the structure and all that. But really, I've got enough information here where I could really cheat my way through the rest. So let me show you that, because it does save a lot of time. So if I take these windows here, for example, let's just grab these two. Notice even the selection tool works in perspective if the perspective guide is on. Command C, Command V. Let's bring that over to here. Let's hold Shift, or actually I don't even think I have to. Nope. Just scale those up. And just as quickly as that, I can get those windows into place. That's already on its own layer now. I can grab the Move tool, hold Alt on the keyboard, drag another copy, and I'm going to place these right here on this side. Now, one of the things I like to do before I do that is just give myself some basic guides to where I'm going to place them. So, for instance, I'll draw a line from the bottom of this window and the bottom of this window, like this. You can see how perspectively it distorts quite a bit, and that's what I wanted visually so that I knew what to do here. So we can now take this, zoom up a bit, Command-Shift T, I believe, for free transform. And just keep in mind you can get to any of these through the Edit Transform tools. And then I can distort these into place, and I kind of have to eyeball this, but again, this is kind of that way where I was saying, you kind of learn to do things visually and cheat here and there if you have to. But this is kind of a huge time saver, and it doesn't have to look perfect. I mean, it's probably a little bit off, but you can do that all throughout the illustration. So then what you start to think about is, well, I just need to detail these forward-facing builds a little bit like this. Well, back here you can do anything because they're off in the distance, but you don't worry about detailing every single component of it, because you know that you're going to be able to copy parts of it and distort it into place. So hopefully that makes sense to you. What cranial measuring method do you use? And that caught me off guard. I don't even know what one I use there. I guess I don't know. I draw a circle and I slice the sides of the circle off, the sphere off, about 7/8, somewhere in there. Is that what you're talking about? I really do that visually too. When you set up a drawing in Manga Studio Photoshop, what are your typical dimensions? I can show you that one real quick because we've already got this going. I use my template. So my template is 11 by 17 at 300 DPI. You can actually get this for free off my Gumroad on my Ram Studio Comics Gumroad. I have 2 of them now. And you can download the template for free. And I just import that into each file. But if you go to Edit, Change Image Resolution, and it pops up on the other screen for some reason, you can see it's 11 by 17 at 300 DPI. That's probably a little bit overkill, but it's what I like to work with. And if you were to zoom in really close, you get pretty tight resolution. I mean, this is still a rough sketch really for her, but yeah. So that's kind of what I work at, and it seems to be more than adequate. Jar Gaming, good stuff, man. Glad you're doing live. It's really fun. I do it on my channel. Can I talk to my fans instead of a computer? Oh, I could talk to my fans instead of a computer and a mic. And keep it up. I've been subbed since day 1 on your channel. Oh, thanks so much, Jar77. I appreciate that. And Gerald, same. Thanks. Yeah, thanks you guys. I appreciate it. I enjoy doing these. I mean, it sucks because I don't always have the time to fit it into the schedule like I kind of talked about in the beginning. And my apologies for that because they are a good time, and I think that it helps everybody, which is awesome. And everybody supports the work that I do, so I want to give back as much as possible. But the tricky thing about it really is committing to a schedule with it so that everybody can participate. And then, because I do freelance work, so I don't ever know when I'm going to get a job in. And when I get a job, especially if it's comics, I jump all over it because I'm trying to do more and more of this stuff. But yeah, it's always a tricky mix to really juggle it all, So forgive me if I ever say, hey, I got this video coming out, or I'm going to live stream next week, and then something happens, because I feel really bad about that. Like, this particular series should have been done a while ago, but life gets in the way, jobs get in the way, and stuff like that. But yeah, I appreciate everybody supporting the live streams. That's awesome. All right, and then what's DS is saying, hey Rob, do you have a way of holding the pen? Because I feel like when I'm working in small parts with my wrist, I tilt the pen, the rounded tip seems to lose the precision, and it's weird. I have to always have the pen at the same angle because that would be very hard for me. I don't know. I know that when I draw, I can't obviously show you guys visually, but when I draw on the screen, I hold it pretty straight towards the screen itself. I don't tilt it very much. I guess if I was going to tilt it, I would feel like I was painting more than drawing, at least with the way that I do stuff. But that's not to say, that's going to work for you, because we're all very different in the way that we create. I know I've always had people tell me that I hold pencils funny when I write my name. I'm left-handed, and I got that weird kind of slant or tilt to the way that I write. But it seems like when I draw, I hold it more upright than when I write my name. So I'm trying to like look at my hand now. You got me staring at my hand trying to figure that out. But yeah, I don't know. It's something you just have to really mess around with and get right. It's really different for everybody as far as the mechanics and the way that we draw. So I wish I could do more to help you with that. That's why I actually wish that I did a few videos where I recorded myself. I really got past that whole mental barrier of doing that. I rather just record the screen and show what I'm drawing. But there are instances where when you do that, you're able to explain certain things in greater detail, which is always nice. All right, just trying to get a little more of this background in. Took entirely way too long on this, but if you notice now, I'm not worrying about cleaning up the lines as much. And really, that's probably a great way to save time with this type of illustration, is just fly through it, get lots of variation from building to building, or as much as possible. Get some drop shadow effects in there. And then, always think about, if you're going to draw over it again anyways, that this stage can be pretty rough and should be pretty rough, because something I'm really trying to stress to people lately is let the rough sketch be rough. Let that process work itself out. Because if you're always trying to refine every stage of your work, one, it will slow you down. Two, it will actually hurt your creativity, I think. So you want to really just let some of the components of it or some of the areas of your process be really rough and just let it kind of organically happen in a sense. But you don't have to refine every single line, I guess is what I'm saying. If I sand the tip to a very fine tip, would that be a bad idea? I don't know what kind of device you're using. I think that would be a bad idea. There's different tips for if you're talking about Wacom or Wacom or however you say it. They have different tips. Like I actually segued to the rubber tip with it's black with a white tip, and they're a little more expensive, but they feel like they got more drag on the screen and they last a lot longer. Because I was using the felt tips all the time, but I was burning through them because I'm heavy-handed. But yeah, so try those rubber tips. But are you talking about a Wacom pen or what are you using? Wacom one, it's like bamboo. Okay, yeah, you should be able to have different tips for that, I think. But I don't know. I haven't used that particular series yet. GS says, I've seen some artists that will have their drawings up on the main screen and then a smaller video of themselves work down the corner. And then you could switch back and forth. Yeah, that's probably not a bad idea. I got to get past that mental barrier of filming myself, I guess. It's like just another thing to kind of worry about and take me out of the zone of creating. But it would make sense in the regard that I could explain things in greater detail. I could just say, hey, look at this and flip the cameras and things like that. So eventually I'll probably have to do that, more of that. But yeah, for now it's just easy for me to do what I'm doing here. Yeah, and another quick trick here is if you're trying to center these windows, I'll really just do this where I'll create a layer. So I'll just show you this, but I'll create a layer and I'll just draw one line and hold Alt. Drag it out the distance of roughly the size of the existing window. Command E, hold Alt again. This is a really quick way if you don't want to draw every window and you keep getting them the incorrect distance across. You can really do this, and then right towards the end you can hold Command Shift T or click Command Shift T, hold Shift and drag them just as far. So if you hold Shift, they'll drag proportionately. And you can really just kind of map the distance. Again, they don't have to be perfect, and you just get something that looks visually correct. Hit Enter, then hold Alt again, drag down, and so on and so forth. So you can, just save lots of time by doing little things like that. Then hit Command E to merge it all together. And I want to keep all this on one layer. So you see the background starting to be detailed enough. Those really far away buildings, you can just blotch those in. You can ink those in. They really don't need to be any kind of detail. You really want to focus on having all your detail up in the front here. Couldn't even draw through that, but up in the front like this, that's your real detailed areas. I probably made even the mid ground a little bit too detailed, but I'll probably paint that back or ink that back a little bit. And then, just really to keep all the focus on her, basically. Oh, it doesn't come with the felt tip. Sorry. Yeah, sorry about that, DS. I don't know what to tell you on that one. It's you could try to file it down, but yeah, I would definitely find more research. First, don't take my word on that because I've never dealt with that situation yet, so I don't want to inform you of it. Give you any bad information. Okay, so any more questions? You guys want to see any more on the city, or is that enough? Because I could probably take that to ink right there. I could fill in the rest of the details by doing little cheats and stuff. Do you want me to work on the character for a little bit before I close this one down? Kind of show you how I would refine this anyway. So I could keep soft erasing, but sometimes it is quicker to just either knock down the opacity like this and then just do a layer over top. It's almost like you're using a light table and erasing back the work. And then just get in here and turn the perspective guide off. I don't think I'm going to be able to draw anatomy with the perspective guide on. And just get in here and clean this up a bit. No, I'm actually, everybody's like, oh, so now you're inking. No, I'm actually not inking, and I probably should. I could show you where I should just take that to ink, shouldn't I? I'm just so like into like cleaning up the work, but yeah, no, if I was inking, let me just show you. I'll delete this. I'll just grab the G pen and do some inks over top. And actually what I'll probably do is just convert that to blue line like this and then call this inks. Yeah, I really do got to get in the habit of just jumping to inks because it does speed up things. I was actually going to clean it up one more time. But there is a certain amount of fluidity I think you get if you train yourself to go right to inks a little bit quicker. But I always tend to really tighten up my pencils before I bring it to inks. But then it almost looks like I'm just kind of repeating a step that I probably don't need to. The other thing that's helpful too is to take the eraser and set that to the same style of G pen. And clean up your lines pretty quickly. Yeah, thanks. That was my rough sketch, but you know it needs to be, like I said, I need to move to inks quicker in the process. And yeah, I'm going to take this to color. Yeah, and you probably shouldn't be perfectionist with your art. I've seen that comment too. You you really do want to let some of it be, you know, stylistic and free flowing, and it's a hard thing for me to do for some reason. That's why I need to experiment a little bit more with just quick line pulls and really just more expressiveness to my work because it tends to, you know, it can slow you down if you try to perfect everything too much, and then it can actually lose some of the feeling, you know, the emotion or whatever. I don't know how to classify it, but it can look less interesting, really. So sometimes it's better to just get in there and let skip a couple steps and just make some decisions, as well as just getting it done on time. You know, it's like you gotta knock this stuff out on deadlines, and if you know, sweat over every single aspect of it, you're going to slow down quite a bit. I think I need to adjust my pen as well. And forgive me because I'll probably get quiet as I start to try to concentrate. Always seems to be the case when I do this type of work. And just so you know, I'm sizing the brush up and down as I go. I don't know if you guys can see that visually. I guess you can see it a little bit over there, but I do adjust the brush size as I'm working through it. Let's see, do you do any extra cleanup to your sketches? Oh, does doing extra cleanup to your sketches help when you're inking? Nova says, yeah, it's real hard to overcome that. Yeah, basically, I do tend to really clean up my sketches because what happens is then when I go to ink, I don't have to think about it as much. I just kind of start inking, and I'm basically tracing the work one more time into a final kind of cleaned up version. But I think it can be a hindrance because it's not it's not always necessary. And some of the best work out there, I think, has a very I don't know how to say it other than organic feel. Again, back to like McFarlane's work, one of the things I always noticed about his stuff was that you could tell that in certain situations he probably just went right from rough pencils to inking. Because he inked his own work, he probably experimented with that quite a bit, and in turn would skip steps, but also lend to this more organic feel to his work. As to where if you take somebody like Jim Lee and Scott Williams, their work tend to be a little bit more structured and a little bit more solid in ways, but or more designed, I guess. Which isn't a bad thing. They're just different styles. They're both great in their certain their ways, their various ways. But that's one thing that I always seem to notice about those particular styles. And I don't know those guys, so I don't really know the decisions they're making. I'm just guessing as a fan, looking and studying at their work. But I think that's what I can seem to ascertain from looking at it. Could be right, could be wrong. Yeah, thanks, JS, because I tend to like get all quiet and try to go, okay, where am I supposed to put this line? Is it go here? And I'm trying to like get just these right line pulls and things. So yeah, I tend to focus and get all quiet. Would you recommend doing a sketch by hand, then scan it into the computer and doing the inking in Photoshop? Uh, yeah, I mean, definitely. You wanna try to mix up all of the different tools you use and use them in different combinations with one another. I think that's really helpful, especially uh, if you ever get some of the mental blocks that we get as artists, where like writer's block, but you can't draw anything. I think that's a great time to really change it up and mix up the tools that you have at hand. Excuse me. So when people talk negatively about digital art, I always think, man, why would you eliminate one of the really neat tools or the really powerful tools that are right in front of you? Wouldn't you just add that to your arsenal? I'm not saying don't do traditional, but do them both. Do them all together. Combine certain aspects of them. And so I always see when people make comments like that on the channel or wherever, I always think, man, what really short-sighted, kind of perspective that is, because I get these points where I just really feel like I can't draw anything, and I'm like get stuck, and that's when I start to venture out and try some other things. I might pick up, some colored pencils and start drawing with those, or start drawing on paper again because I do so much digitally, or do some 3D sculpting or something, and it always seems to help me break out of that monotony and that mental rut that we sometimes get into. So yeah, I would definitely try combining those various techniques and tools together to get the best. If you look at any of the really amazing artists, it almost always seems to be that the ones that are just doing this elaborate, fantastic work do a little bit of mixed media. People like Soriyama or Frazetta, I'm sure did mixed media. I don't know if Frazetta did, but I'm sure he did. I know he did some amazing sketches, and then he did some fantastic paintwork, but I don't know if he mixed up the various acrylics with watercolors. I'm sure he did. But it's almost like by combining those different techniques and tools, they get the most amazing aspect of each. So I would say think that way about digitally and traditional as well, for sure. Oh, and Nova says Jim Lee's style for me is more flowing and loose. Yeah, I mean it's all into interpretation. We all kind of see the work in our own kind of way. But to me, it seems very structured and very tight. Like he knows exactly what he wants to put down on the page, and that's what comes out. That's always my interpretation his style, but I could be wrong. You know, it's like I know I've seen stuff that he does that is a bit more sketch like, but it seems like he does most of it where it's very structured and very just very confident. You know, confident lines at what he's doing. Less to interpretation is what I see, but again, I don't know. I guess the person to ask on that one would be Scott Williams. You know, how does he feel? But they've worked so long now together that I think that needs to come across there more. That they probably can pretty much read each other's mind. I imagine, as far as like brush strokes and putting something down, and the other one seeing it. He probably can leave a lot to interpretation because he knows the way that Scott's going to interpret it. I would guess. I'm like slaughtering this logo. That comes down straighter, right? And it looks like it doesn't need to be as high like that. No, actually, it depends. Also, one of the questions is, do you normally use short strokes to get cleaner lines, create smooth lines? No, it's actually quick pulls for smooth lines. So if I want like a really smooth line, I'm going to try to pull it really fast like that. And the trick is to like get where you can stop it. I used to do this thing where I would zoom in all the time and try to go like this, like I'd sculpt each line like this. And it works. I did it long enough where I could get it to go, but then I just started to see, wouldn't it be a lot quicker to just go like that from a distance, So it's better if you try to work back here as much as possible. I'm not going to do that on this part of the character, but yeah, it's better to like draw these in with like these quick pulls and, maybe then get in there and sculpt it a little bit, but... And, you want to try to, vary up your line weight the entire way through. So I try to, if you notice, I put thinner lines for the suit markings, thicker lines for the abdomen right there, and just keep kind of mixing that up. And I still don't feel like my brush is working accurately. Let me try to jump in here and fix that. So I think I need a little bit more firm to my brush here. Let me try that. Oh, still doesn't feel right. Oh, that'd be why. That would be why right there. Yep. So that's what it was. I wasn't using the brush to the right setting. So one of the things is, in case you guys are wondering right there, I actually use a variety of programs and a variety of brushes, and some of these brushes need to be at various settings to maximize efficiency. So to me, like when I'm doing these types of lines, I want to have to put down some pressure to get a thicker weight so that I can really taper off the lines pretty thin to get the type of line work or hatching that I like to see. So just be aware of that I'm oftentimes changing the pressure per brush. And the reason why I have to change that a lot is because I also digitally paint, and I actually paint with an entirely different pressure than I draw and ink with. So hopefully that makes sense. Do you have Divine Right, Jim Lee's 90s books? Yeah, I got one or two of them. I don't know how many were in the series, but I do know that I have a couple of those. I remember seeing that. Yeah, I'm a huge 90s fan, so I got like a lot of 90s comics, especially from the whole, Jim Lee, Silvestri, McFarlane, Liefeld. Uh, I don't know if you'd classify Ed Benes, but I think you do. His stuff. I like all their hyper. Dale Keown, he's like one of my faves. Like those guys all just did or still do a lot of them to me the most amazing work. And I know, you mentioned that and some people kind of harp on them and talk smack and act like no, they're they weren't as great as everybody thinks. And I don't know. To me, I'm like I don't see it. Like they just did fantastic, hyper realistic work that I'm still impressed with. I'm still trying to get better and see into what they do a bit more and do that type of style. I kind of find it hard to believe that a lot of comics don't have that much of that style anymore. Like it seems like there's a lot of stuff out there where it's nothing like that. And I know it's just progression. People change and perspectives on various styles change. But to me, that's just some really well done art. It seems like more people would gravitate towards that. But, you know, times do change. Wow, I can't believe we're at hour 16. That's just nuts. It's going to end up being like one of my longest live streams ever. Ever. Okay, you see I'm like scared to like do her logo, right? I'm like almost wanting to pull a picture just to remember how the logo goes and to gain a little confidence on it because I feel like and this is exactly why I keep refining so that when I get to this part I'm not guessing as much. But again, I need to build the comfort level of just doing it and not wasting all this time when I could hopefully speed through the work and get it done quicker. I gotta always remember, done is better than perfect. Done is better than perfect. Let me read through these real quick as I sip my coffee. I haven't sipped my coffee the entire time. I can't believe it. Did it take you a long time to get to your current skill level? Yeah, kinda. I mean, I'm 40, and I've been drawing comics since I was. Well, I started drawing heavily at 15, and I've been drawing comics since I was 18. Not entirely professional, but I've had books published since I was 18, 20. So yeah, I've been doing it a long time. Um, and let's see. The newer artists seem to me like they're less detailed, like they're working against the deadline. DS, I appreciate the compliment on the work. Thank you. Yeah, so hold on as I drink this delicious coffee. Oh my god, it's so good. I put in like lots of creamer. Um, yeah, so them working against the deadline. Yes, I mean that's probably what it predominantly is. Like a lot of these guys, for them to get hyper realistic and make a deadline is really rare. They talked a lot about that when those guys all did their rock star thing and really like shot up and did the whole Image Comics and that books just started missing deadlines left and right. And I think part of that is because they wanted the books to look so amazing, and the other part is they were now their own bosses kind of thing, and they could get away with more, which can oftentimes be a downfall, especially to creative types. We need that structure, that 9 to 5 idea sometimes, even though we don't adhere to it. It's really how business is done, how work gets done by a schedule. Um, so so I think realistically, like it's probably better to err on the side of less detail and more just getting the correct technique and fundamental information into your books. And then if you can add the detail and still keep your deadline, if you can add all the extra frills and still make a book on time, then cool. But if you can't, you got to quickly come to that decision because if not, you're just not going to you're not going to produce stuff on time, and you're not going to make, again, done is better than perfect. If it doesn't come out, is there any real value to it? If like you can be this type of artist that makes amazing work, but if you only make it once a year, I don't know how you would make it in any industry unless you can sell one amazing piece a year for a lot of money. Which I don't know how you would do that, but maybe some people can do it. So that's where you just have to come to grips with that. Be realistic with yourself, and I struggle with this quite a bit. So I'm not just talking as somebody like, oh, I've got it all figured out, and this is what you do. I'm saying it more like almost like I'm reaffirming this to myself because I like the detail. I like trying to get better with every piece, and sometimes that can be a hindrance. You need to really focus on producing the work, and you'll get better through that process. Not so much like for instance, I don't know if you guys see it, but I sure as hell see it. Like that hand looks wacky to me. It looks horrible. And I can either pull up reference and I can start posing in the mirror, and I can do that and get it done really quickly. Or I can like go through this mental process where I go, oh my God, I'm horrible at hands. I need to go back and redraw 500 hands and really study hands for a week before I finish that hand. You get what I'm saying? It just wouldn't make sense. Like that would be a ridiculous thing to do. And I think that mentally that's what we do to ourselves. Like we focus so much on it being maybe perfect or something, when really we just got to get it done and know that, after you produce a couple books, you're going to get better naturally at hands or, buildings or whatever it is that you're facing that you seem to latch onto and negatively focus on. At least that's been my experience with it. Like you just got to produce work, and through that process, you'll get a lot better. What's it saying? I would do that last line you did with more like one stroke. Yeah, probably. I didn't see what I wasn't looking at the comments. You're probably right, though. Yeah, and another trick, too, just so you know, like if you're doing like these little, like I'm going to put some line work on the boob area here, you could just kind of add a layer. I always tilt the screen which, whatever direction's the most comfortable. And I want to taper these lines from thick to thin. And these ones I kind of will, redraw, like I'm feathering these lines. Just because I like to really control the exact look of them, I guess. But knowing that it's on a separate layer helps me out a lot because I can go over either edge. I'm trying not to, and I usually can prevent myself from going over the lines. But it's there if I need it. Like I could shoot right past that, and it's not that big of a deal. I can just come back and erase that, and then once I get it right, I can hit Command E and merge it down. So I use that effect quite a bit as I'm working through parts of the cross hatching and things like that. Yeah, thanks, JS. I appreciate that. Like I said, I'm not as confident with my inks, and there's a lot of this information like right through here where it's still very murky, and there's no reason I can't jump back into the pencil layer and fix it. But I would at least try to maybe just skim through it with inks. So I think her collar goes something like this. I'm just gonna try to fake it, and hopefully it comes out all right. I actually can't remember how it comes down here, if it comes across here and up like this or more to a V. But there's a lot to be said for just getting through it with the inks like this and saving time. And it makes sense for me because I pencil and ink all my own stuff, so I really do need to get over that mental barrier and just say, to hell with it and just knock it out. And if people might like my work, they'll still like a little bit more of a loose style at times. It's like my Blackstone book. It's like I should probably be on like book 3 or 5 or something by now, and I'm just just now getting to where I'm going to be able to wrap up book 2. But part of that too is because I've been taking on other freelance projects. If I was able to just solely work on the comic, I'd have no doubt that I would at least be able to do a book every other month, potentially a book each month. What was your original approach to getting your work published, like your first works you got published? So the way that came about is, and I would recommend this to anybody in the same regard, even today, really, but it's a little different today because you're talking 20 years ago when I did it. But what I did is I went to my local comic stores and I asked to put up my work. Some of them were okay with it. Others were like, "Get the hell out of here! Buy a comic book, or I'm going to punch you in the face." It wasn't their exact words, but it was pretty much what they meant. And so I got a couple stores, one mainly, that was really nice enough to share my work, allow me to put it up. And I put it up, and I had a few people comment on it, say great work, and that was nice. A few people offered to buy stuff here and there. That was nice. But then mainly one person came out and said, "Hey, would you like to do a book?" So I got like a call from the store owner, and I was like so excited. I just remember like thinking, this is my big break. I landed a comic deal, and of all places, through a local store that was like, hey, somebody wants you to do a book for them. And I did Arrow and Assault for Time Comics, and it was great. It was great exercise. It was great to actually finally get work in print. It was local. It was an independent publisher. The first couple books were pretty crude, on my part. I'm saying not so much the printing or the publishing or anything like that. It was just I was just really not ready for it. Like I did up until then, I was only kind of doing pinups, and luckily, I don't even know how. Looking back at my work, anybody thought it was good enough, but he wanted me to do the work. He paid me a decent page rate. I tell you the truth, I would have been happy just to make anything at that point because it was getting printed. And so I did that. And then the book, by the time I got through book 2 for him, the work had gotten a lot noticeably better. And he was trying to present to Diamond Distribution to get it picked up to go national. And he asked me to redo the books. So I ended up redoing book 1 and 2, and I think simply because there was such a big shift in my art style from doing those books. Like I'll put it this way: book 1 and 2, the first set was scary looking. It was just really bad, and then the next two were, I could still look back at them and still see some areas where I was still like okay with the work, but there's definitely a lot of areas where I'm like, God, those are horrible too. But your work progresses, so that just happens. But yeah. So at any rate, that's how I got published, and that's and then it got picked up by Diamond. It went national. I didn't make a ton off it or anything like that, but it did get out there. So that was my first time experience getting published and getting that excitement of going into a store and seeing your work there and going, wow, I'm validated. I've made it, kind of thing. Even though financially it didn't mean a whole lot. I didn't make enough to call it a financial success, but it did get printed. It did get out there. So I always tell people, like, the first thing you need to do, they always say, like, how do I get into comics? How do I make comics? And the first thing I say is make comics. Do it. Don't wait for somebody else to tell you you're good enough or give you some golden opportunity. I mean, I was lucky enough to have Time Comics give me a shot, and I did those. But then, you can make your own comics, especially nowadays. You really don't need a publisher to give you that leg up. I mean, if you get that opportunity, so be it. That's awesome. Don't knock it. But what I'm saying is now there's so many opportunities for you to share your work daily, and you just need to do the work, put the books together, do it with your friends, whoever like-minded individuals you can collaborate with, and get the work produced. And then, you can approach publishers, you can self-publish, you can, put it on Gumroad. I mean, there's just all kinds of ways to do it these days. Do a webcomic. but just get it going, get it done. You know, but the main thing is that you put the book together. That's the part that separates, uh, you know, people that want to do it, the people that are doing it. They've proven that they can do an entire book, tell an entire story, which is really the hard part. Getting product done and learning through that process is like the biggest thing, I think. Yep, just do it. Like the Nike commercial, for sure. It's the truth. Oh yeah, no problem, Kiwi. What about starting out as self-publishing straight to digital comics on the Kindle? Yeah, I would definitely do that. I mean, to tell you the truth, I'm thinking about doing that again. Like, I mean, I do my own comic, so I try to put the Blackstone comic everywhere I can. And then I just got done doing a book for a client. I still can't talk about it, but I'll let everybody know as soon as I can talk about it. Uh, but that was all what they. It was still my book, but they told me essentially what they wanted and or the formatting of it and things like that. Um, but you know, you start doing these big hefty projects, and then you almost wonder, like, God, should I just do? Could I just put some more of this out on my own? And you can. The big part is this: when you work with another company, when you work with a professional publisher, there's a few things that happens. One, they're a lot more structured. They're a lot more by the book. They treat it like a business. That's the big part. They treat it like a business. It is a business. And so they get things done. They don't flounder. They don't make excuses. They get it done. Plus, they distribute. They know how to distribute and get the product out there. All these things are at your fingertips, like they never have been before, or more than they've ever been before. But the one thing that hasn't changed, or that you've got to make change within yourself, is you have to learn to be a professional. You have to learn to commit to it like a business. And that's where people they make the mistake. And then they come back with, well, no, I tried and it didn't work and it doesn't work. No, it does work. You just, if you don't do it wholeheartedly, if you don't get it done on a timely fashion, if you don't bust butt and treat it like a job every single day, then it's not going to work. Nothing will. You can find success in anything you do if you treat it like a job, hard work, and you persevere through it. Those are the people that make it. Those are the ones that you hear stories about. None of them, I don't think I've ever heard a success story where it goes, yeah, I just kind of sat around, drew these pictures, and people loved it. And next thing you know, I was making millions of dollars. I don't think I've ever heard that. I mean, maybe that's out there, but usually what I always seem to hear, the part that I gravitate towards, I always listen to, is I always hear somebody say, yeah, I struggled forever and I worked my butt off and I almost gave up, but I just kept going. You know, and it's usually something like that. And then you get to the part where they go, yeah, and then the doors opened up and it was amazing, and you know, doves flew in my window, and you know, I'm a success now. I do it for a living. But they worked hard to get to that point. You know, it didn't just happen. You know, like people are savants, people are naturally gifted and things like that, but hard work will outweigh any of that, in my opinion. Because one of the things that happens, if you learn to outwork somebody that's more talented than you, they'll get lazy because of their talent. In a sense, they'll get big-headed. They will. It happens. And then, but your hard work will have taught you persistence and diligence and all these things that the ultra talented type will sometimes take for granted. So I would actually take hard work over talent, to tell you the truth. But I mean, if you got them both, then hey, that's fantastic. Let's see what else. How much script development do you do before working on your comics, and what typically is your process going from script to ink? Um, I'll be honest, I'm not the best one to really answer that because I don't do enough preparatory work in my scripts, and I'm trying to get better at that. I'm trying to actually start. You ever see where people lay stuff out on a pinup board and they map the whole story in a visual aid kind of thing? I'm going to start doing that. I've actually been studying that, and then studying, how it works out with like plot. Uh, uh, I can't even remember right now, but there's some good books out there. Like I think one of them is DC's Comics to Writing Comics, or DC's Guide to Writing Comics. It should be on my shelf over here, but at any rate, soak all that up and then really figure it out. I actually will do this thing where I draw it all out and I do it more visually as just thumbnailing and kind of acting out the story in my head. So I'm probably not the best person to ask. I'm not the most efficient writer, is what I'm trying to say. I'm more of a guy that I've got a good imagination. I can see things in my head pretty well. Uh, and I just kind of fake it and imagine it from there and illustrate it from there. So I would say that you really want to study from comic writers that work together with artists or however, and get their opinion on that, because I'm not as structured as I really should be. I know that about myself, and I want to improve that. So that's the first step to fixing any problem, right? But at this point, I'm still kind of struggling in that department. Like I need to really just write a good story and then thumbnail the entire story with those rough sketch thumbnails through the entire process. Like that's what I do when I work with a client. Like I'm working on a book right now with a guy, and I send him a thumbnail of everything I do, and then I clean up the thumbnail to a rough sketch, and then I clean up the rough sketch to finished pencils. I do that on every part. But then I go to jump in on my own book, and I just kind of go right to drawing it or something, and that can be really a negative habit to get into, because I think, anyways, it's because I'm almost convoluting the idea, because I have a better idea of what I want to see maybe in the end of the book, but you still have to work out all the steps, all the tiny little the storytelling. You can't just skip steps because I really got this great imagination. I think that can actually backfire on you, anyways. It just gave you energy with that speech. Yeah, I'm sorry. I don't mean for the stuff to come off as a speech, but I guess at times I do get a little speechy. But yeah, glad I could give you some energy and help out in that area. Yeah, and her face is messed up, but I'll just keep picking at it. I think it's the forehead and the shape of the face. I think that you got that all kind of skewed. But I'll figure it out. I know her eyelashes need to be heavier. Nice heavy eyelashes. The coffee must be kicking in. Yeah, for sure. I know. I'm a coffee fiend. I gotta really tone it back a bit too. I drink me lots of coffee. I think if I quit drinking coffee, like Folgers would come to my house. They would like say something. They would be like, "Hey, is something wrong? I mean, is there anything we can do? Maybe some free samples? We got this new product coming out. You want to try it?" I would literally cut into their profit margin. Yeah, you're right. The lower lip is too square. It's the mouth altogether. So what I'm going to do here, yeah, I don't know. It's weird looking. I struggle with faces even to this day. But I'm going to take this. I'm going to go back to the sketch layer. And I'm actually going to turn the blue line off. She's going to look, whoa, it's going to look a little gothic here for a minute. Get all dark. Let me erase this back and try to fix that a little bit. Let's see the next comment. Oh, wait. Backseat driving here. No, that was a good comment, Kiwi. Like I'm always messing with ideas and adding and removing stuff, and I like to sketch more than the actual drawing. Yeah, I mean, the sketching is where all the ideas happen, and it's very good to know that and to stick with that. Like you should sketch often. You should be really open to adjusting your work in lots of various ways, because if not, you'll just tend to draw the same thing over and over again. So that's that's a good idea. The fact that you like sketching and changing things, I would definitely say stick with that, because that's how you learn and that's how you find your style. You know, like people always asking, how do I find my style? And I think it's if you don't know it yet, you just need to sketch and draw more to where you loosen up a bit, and just make different choices. So if you keep making the same choice over and over again, and you can feel yourself doing it, I think. Like I feel myself doing it right here with the mouth. It's like I want to change the look of it, but I almost went and drew the exact same thing right over top. And it's like, all right, that's going to do me no good at all. So I have to try to fight that urge and look for small changes to try something different to see if I can make the mouth shape work a little bit better. And you know, if I do this a couple times and I can't get it right, then I pull up reference. So again, back to not feeling bad about using reference or looking at somebody else's work. I mean, I'll freaking steal somebody else's mouth if I have to. You know, I'm not too proud. I'll just go grab. I go steal some other artist's mouth and put it put it on my drawing. No, I'm kidding. That sounded horrible. That's actually sounded bad in a couple ways, but no, I wouldn't do that. I would study from their work and then try to fix what I'm doing wrong in mine. And sometimes it's as easy as messing with the shape too. Like I'll try. This is why I love digital. Like I'll take things and like resize them. I'll hit Command Shift T, and I'll like try to distort them a little bit. Maybe I bring this side perspectively inward. So I kind of edit the work couple ways just to see if I can fix it. And then sometimes it's just a bad draw and I got to redraw it and, you know, start over or whatever. Yeah, see, I think that looks funky right now, but when I go to ink it in full, it might be better. Let's see what's some of these real quick. Maybe I should become a concept artist. Yeah, it's possible. Also, what's the best coffee you've ever drank? Big B. I love Big B coffee. They're mochas like that and Starbucks, but I think Big B has got them beat. In time, will I enjoy my finished piece more than my sketch? Yeah, maybe. I don't know. Possibly. I've read somewhere a good artist borrows, a great artist steals. Yeah, I mean it's sad but true. It really is, because you know, like I always look at it like this. Like I really want to be able to just draw amazingly out of my head and not look at anything. But if I keep fighting that process, I'm not going to give up at drawing and go, well, I guess I just suck at it because I can't draw everything out of my head. I just don't give up like that when it comes to anything really. But so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to figure out a way to get past it. And if that means I tend to just try to study other people's work more than just steal it or you know, recycle their work or whatever. But you know, I'm at least going to study their work. I'm at least going to study from life and get it done. I'm not going to give up. So I could definitely see where that's a saying, because that's kind of what it's getting at. Like you wouldn't just give up and walk away. You'd get it done. And if you got to grab somebody else's work, like, you know, if you just grab a piece of it and you, especially if you redraw it by looking at it, I fail to see where that's wrong. Like, to me, it's like, it's only bad if you just were to do that with the entire piece and then not give credit to the original creator. That's where I see it as being wrong. You know, even if I draw something, I don't know if you guys saw it, but I did a Wolverine a little ways back on the iPad Pro, and that mouth still looks funky. And I looked at the work by Mike Zeck, I believe his name is, but I said that right in the video. You know, I still had people going, "Oh man, amazing shot of Wolverine you did," and I'd comment back, "Yeah, thanks, but it was me looking at another picture by an artist, Mike Zeck, and I gave it my own spin, my own style. I didn't copy his work per se. I didn't like trace it or nothing like that, but I did study it. I looked at it almost the entire way through, or at least through the sketch process. And then when I went to ink and color it, I didn't look at his at all. And so, I mean, that's where you know, but I still didn't say, hey, this is my drawing of Wolverine. I said, hey, I looked at another artist's work. I did it more as a study. I do that from time to time, but I always give credit back to the original artist. So anyways, that's how I do it. You can do whatever you want, though. Maybe it's just me, but the mouth looks awesome. Oh, well, I'm glad you think so. Yeah, and good comment, JS. Flip it and see if it looks backwards. I'm kind of scared too, but you're right. If you take this and go rotate canvas, flip horizontal, the flaws will jump. I don't know why this is. Whoa. Oh my God, her face looks like a knee now. What did I do? All right, let's go up here. Yeah, I actually don't mind it flipped, so I guess it can't be that bad. This eye looks a little bit large, but I actually don't mind that because I think that's kind of a style choice. Like, it kind of gave her almost anime eyes in a sense. So yeah, I'm not too displeased with that. So I'll Command Z and go backwards. There we go. All right. Yeah, but good call, JS. That's a really good way to spot flaws. Let's see. Glad other people have that problem too, not being able to draw straight from your head. Yeah, it's one of them things. You have an idea. Some ideas are going to be a lot more clear than others. I'm actually going to add a layer to do the hair now. But really, what you're learning is a series of techniques to be able to work through a concept. So it's not that you're always having this extremely entirely accurate visual template in your mind or something like that. It's more or less a series of ideas, but you learn to make it work through process or technique. I guess I don't know how to explain that better, other than it's more technique than just perfection and just this great ability to just dump ideas onto paper. You know, like, because there's days where, and I've read about really amazing artists that do this as well. There's days where you're just going to feel like you can't draw anything, and sometimes that lasts for weeks or months. You know, and that's where your fundamental core knowledge of all the techniques that you do and implement will save the day. Those will kind of come through and be your hero, because we all face it. It's not a fictitious thing. It's not made up. Like, you'll have days where you just cannot draw as well, but your basic understanding of structuring your work will still allow you to get through it. It won't be your best work, but you'll be able to fake it and get it done, and meet your deadlines, because you can't just stop work. It's not like your editor is going to take the excuse of, I can't draw today. I'm not feeling it. They're going to be like, all right, well, you're fired, and we'll send your last check or whatever, and thanks for doing business with us. Yeah, you just can't do it. You gotta get through it. So yeah. So and I think I saw one that said hairbrush, hairpin. I could try that. Let me see. I don't know if it'll work on this. A lot of times I like drawing a lot of these strands like this. The hairpin that I got is more like almost like painting style. But where is that sucker? You're right, I do have a hairpin, don't I? Micron, smooth blender spike, ink hair set. Let me see if I can use some of this in there. Yeah, maybe I could. Yeah, good call. Who said that? Hey, you in the back. Who said that? Oh, it was JS. Thanks, JS. I'll try a little bit of it. I tend to want to draw those in, but this one's good for like texturing. And I usually do this with the darker hair, but what this one will do is give her a little bit more texture to the hair, but still look like ink. So if I zoom up, it gives you a little bit of that kind of spatter brush look almost. But, and if it's larger, it'll come out really clean, but I'm working pretty small. So I might use that for just a little bit of the flowingness, the shading basically. And you could almost bring these together here. Let's try this. Get that little bit of highlight source. But she's a blonde, so we don't want to add too much of this. But you can kind of round out these forms of the hair. Yeah, it almost looks like a like a dry brush effect. So I think I'll go with the G pen for a little bit longer, but yeah, good call on that one. And really, I should be using my detailing brush, but I just bounce around. Yet another hairbrush at the top. Hey, quit looking at my brushes. Mind your own brushes. Where is it? Let me see here. Oh, I did, yeah, hairbrush B, and which one did I just use, A or B? Yeah, that one's not bad too. Oh, okay, so this one's darker. Yeah, like I said, this is better. I would almost have to use this in a way where I paint it dark like that, go back to transparent, come back with the highlight. Because she's more of a blonde, so I would use that more for a brunette to really quickly paint in the hair. So blondes I typically will leave more of it light, like you see here, so that, you know, when I color it, it doesn't come across as too dark. Good to see you're paying attention, though. At least somebody is. Yeah, here's another thing I got to get faster at. Like, this is always one of the ones where I slow down and try to figure out where I want to put every little piece of hair. And I got to get better at just blocking it in. You know, somebody who does it really well is J. Scott Campbell. He does like this really good hair, and you can tell he does it in like these really quick strokes and strands. Like, it's not overly intense and detailed, but it looks great when it's colored and it works. I'd almost say that about his entire style. Like, it's just like a lot of well-placed lines that probably get him through the piece pretty quickly. Thing I don't like about streaming on YouTube is no music for copyright purposes. And a sad face. Yeah, sorry about that, Lewis. That is kind of sucky. How do you practice hairstyles? You know, to tell you the truth, I was actually thinking about making that my next video on YouTube here. So I might be doing another hair video really quick. It's always a great way for me to practice and then explain as I do it, or time lapse it and then explain over top. But essentially, if I had to give you the short answer to that, even though I'm not the greatest at it, like, I think this hair looks kind of weak, I'm probably have to go back and edit it a bit. I don't mind this part over here. This part looks entirely different, so I got to fix that. But the thing that I always try to do is like think about flowing ribbons and flipping it onto itself. So like almost like if this part came this way, maybe it'd come back and, you know, do something like this. So it, like, if you notice, it got real thin right here. Oh, I got a soft brush. God, I hate when that happens. But yeah, so like flipping strands, and like even this is too thin right there. Like, it needs to get really thin right to here, then come back and maybe get like, I don't know, thicker like this and back to thin. I think the best way is to practice drawing a bunch of ribbons and then trying to make that work when you do the hair. And then the other thing is like how these shapes are. So if I draw this big blocky shape right here and here, that's really the better way to do it. Like these larger shapes, because when you get too thin, like I did over here, it all comes together. It starts to look real overly, like too many strands, like spaghetti or something. It doesn't work as well for a hair illustration for comics. Not to mention it even takes longer. So you want to like practice this right here where, and you want to try to get these sweeping lines in place. And a lot, for me, the way that this happens, I have to rotate the screen just right, or I don't seem to get a nice curve on the line that I'm looking for. So you'll see I hit Command Z quite a bit just to get that right curve. And then sometimes I'll put another line next to a line like this, but I try not to do it too much where I end up with what I did over there. So again, like this curve, I might even just take this and rotate the screen all the way this way, and then try to get this curve to come in with one pull, and at least something close where I can finish it off like that. Sometimes a series of quick pulls. Let's see, I'm just trying to connect those, and you know, I'm not against like hitting undo a bunch of times until I get the right shape in place. And I, you know, check the work from a distance, make sure it reads well, things like that. Let's see. He has done hair tutorials. Campbell's legs are amazing. Yes, they are. They're really, really long. You know, he does have really nice legs. I think he works out. I'm pretty sure. And let's see, I missed a few of these comments here. Let's see. Oh yeah, look up Alfonso Dunn. Yeah, I think I've seen some of his videos too. And he has done hair tutorials. Oh, cool. Are you familiar with Mark Sparacio? No, I don't think I am. And then Kiwi says, yes, hair video. And then Lewis says, some Indonesians can make curves and hatch lines at any angle without turning the paper. Tang them. Yeah, I mean, you know, you can get better at it. I'm just going for what's quicker. You know, it's like, I'm sure you could eventually train yourself with, you know, repetition is the key to any of this. So if you just wanted to practice, like for instance, if you couldn't turn the paper, you're eventually going to figure it out, right? But I can hold R, I can rotate the screen, and I can do it in a couple tries. So to me, it just makes sense. But yeah, you can overcome this the need to adjust the paper for sure, for sure. All right, so let's see what else here. Get a few more of these little strands. Try not to overdo it, as I always do. And the part I always struggle with is I always put this unnecessary part in the hair. Like you almost never see somebody with a part just like that in their hair. I mean, it's there, but it's not as defined. So you got to be careful on how you illustrate that part. Kind of mentioning that to myself because I need to fix that. And then at the very end, after you get enough of your hair shapes in place, just put a few like little like loose strands flipping up and around here and there. Always kind of helps give it another level of depth. Especially if she's in the air, so tell you the truth, like those would probably be kind of everywhere, you know, they'd be flipping and flying all over the place. But yep, so we're getting there. I mean, it's definitely still needs some work for sure, and you know, I got to get through ink and her, but we definitely made some progress today. So let me do this. Any last questions before I wrap this up? Because I can't believe we're actually coming up on 2 hours. This is definitely my longest live stream ever. Let's see. That moment when you draw curves on paper and try to hit Control Z. No, I know it. You're totally right, Nova. And then Lewis comments on it too. Like I've literally done that. That's how bad force of habit is, apparently, because I went to hit Control Z as I'm inking something on paper. I'm like, nope, guess I got to get out the whiteout for that one. So yeah, so any last questions before I wrap this up? I appreciate everybody tuning in and watching. Be sure to check out the Gumroad and things like that. So if there's any additional course content or brushes, all that supports the work that I do here. So I'm always eternally grateful for that. Likewise, you can also check out Clayton's proportions lessons. I'll make sure there's a link in the description box below when I access or save out the video. And I'll also be doing a review video on that real soon, so you guys can check that out. Yeah, you're welcome, Kiwi. I appreciate, you comment and being part of this. I appreciate everybody being active in these live streams. It really helps out. Let's see. Lewis says, what's the purpose of hatching that way on a sketch? I don't know what you mean there. If you're talking about the hatching that we applied here, this is the inking, and I put hatching to show shadow, to show change of, curvature and shadow on the forms, which is obviously backed up with the coloring process, but, the inking gives it that added form and depth. But this wouldn't be the sketch anymore. I do the cross-hatching in the sketch to give me the information I need for the inking, if that's what you meant. Yeah, hatching in the blue sketch. I do that as a preliminary or a prequel to the inks that I'm going to be adding. So it's like I always think of all these processes like a relay race, and the more information you can put in the one process makes it easier on the next. But then as you get better at it, you'll tend to jump steps and need less and less information to that next stage of your work. All right, so with that, I'm going to bring it to a close. I appreciate everybody for watching and being part of this. There'll be more on the way real soon. So keep drawing, keep having fun, and bye for now.